I think we'll see a massive explosion in the use of this technology there before we do it in the West. We see it in the Western world.
And you talked about how blockchain and cryptocurrency can be catalytic for developing countries. And it feels like capitalism was this great, in some ways, equalizer, in that it made the pie bigger per se, and more people were able to be a part of it, and their portion was able to grow. It feels like that's hard just in a normal, with all of the problems in a lot of developing countries with shaky governments, the currency can't be trusted, super high inflation. Do you feel as if this blockchain, similar to how capitalism was in the 18th and maybe 19th century, as there was probably better legislation around capitalism and the free market, do you feel that blockchain could be that for developing countries and finally give them stability that they've needed to thrive, to practice the imago Dei, right, the image of God, to flourish as a human, pursuing whatever vocational context or career they desire?
Yeah. Well, the proof is in the pudding, and the data is still coming in, but we do see that developing countries are the highest per capita, have the highest per capita usage of this technology, specific to Bitcoin. Now, remember, we have these different buckets, right? So Bitcoin is trying to be money. It is a hard asset, Austrian economics, capped supply, a supplement to the dollar, right? And a lot of people in the developing world don't have access to dollars. We have the exorbitant privilege in the U.S. of the dollar being the world's reserve currency, which we would love to remain for another century. But the way that the current administration is spending right now, we're not seeing that. And really all administrations. Let's practice what we preach on the whole bird here.
Right.
We have had exorbitant spending for the last several decades, regardless of the administration.
Right.
So the printing press is going, and spending is going, and we want the dollar to remain the world's reserve currency, but who knows if it will. So going back to the developing world, they don't have that privilege. They're using currency that's inflating 40% a year at times. So the highest per capita usage is actually Nigeria and Vietnam. There's a significant percentage of their commerce that takes place on various blockchains, mostly Bitcoin, but others as well. And they've skipped the whole brick and mortar bank situation. They moved straight to mobile payments. And from mobile payments, they're moving to Bitcoin. Mobile payments, it's an easy transition for them because they're doing the digital Naira or the mobile payments for their Naira, which is the Nigerian currency, and they pick up Bitcoin with QR code-based payments, and they're able to be the bearer of their asset. They don't have to trust, their government's not going to inflate the currency away or anything like that. Well, I think we'll see a massive explosion in the use of this technology there before we do it in the West. We see it in the Western world. Because here in the United States, the reason why I own Bitcoin is that I want it as a part of my investment portfolio.
Right.
It's part of my overall strategy, which also includes stocks and bonds, and more bonds now than it did 5 years ago because of the way the bond market is. But that's a luxury to be able to view Bitcoin in that way. For them, it's money. It's just digital money, and they're using it to a street vendor who's selling oranges on the side of the road in Lagos, Nigeria, is just using it as their way to make they're not trying to make a political statement. They're just using it as a
stable currency.
Stable currency.
Yeah.
And that's a good point that you bring up. Stable. Bitcoin price is not stable. It's very volatile. I think it will become the windows at which it has its volatility will lessen over time as it becomes a more globally held asset.
Right.
And the volatility will start to shrink. But in their eyes, if they can use a combination of Bitcoin and stablecoins, which stablecoins are backed by the dollar, one stablecoin equals one US dollar always, right? Because a dollar is a dollar.
Right.
So they use a combination of those two things. They can get US dollars through stablecoins, and they have the ease of transacting on Bitcoin. That's like a 1-2 punch for them. They get access to dollars, which they didn't have access to before. Except for some economies like El Salvador or others that are already dollarized, right? They don't have their own currency. They use the dollar.
Right.
And then they also have access to Bitcoin because it's permissionless. It could be used by anybody in the world. Now, are these people in Lagos, Nigeria, trading with 2, 3, 4 Bitcoin, like $100,000 worth of Bitcoin? Probably not. I mean, maybe they're 1% or they're ultra wealthy are, but the average, solopreneur business person is using 0.00001 Bitcoin
Right.
for someone who's buying a
Yeah.
bundle of peaches.
Right.
That's the wrong cash crop there, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Fruit.
Right. Yeah. Everyday exchanges.